Shonen Jump features the same kind of tropes in almost all of its battle manga. Tournaments, one-on-one fights, rivalries turned friendship, the pursuit of strength. But the 50-year-old magazine didn't always have a plug-and-play method for success. It took a couple of decades before editors learned what was popular with readers. To learn how Shonen Jump became what it is today, we'll have to go back in time and examine the 3 successful titles that built what people call the Shonen Jump formula. The year is 1968, and Shonen Jump just debuted as a bi-weekly magazine. Their aim was to compete with the other 2 most popular magazines of the time, Weekly Shonen Sunday and Weekly Shonen Magazine. It was a very ambitious goal to launch a new magazine aimed at the shonen demographic, years into the shonen manga boom. The field was very competitive. Authors like Shotaro Ishinomori moved to Tokyo with the intention of working for Manga Shonen, a shonen magazine just like any other. But little did he know that the magazine ceased publication upon his arrival because of other publishing companies starting their own line of shonen magazines. Ishinomori had to quickly find employment and ended up illustrating for Kodansha Shoujo Club, a magazine that targeted the female demographic. Anyway, Shonen Jump launched with a handful of titles in its first year, some of which fizzled out after about 10 issues, like Otoko no Joken or The Qualifications of a Man, while some titles did find moderate success, like Chichi no Tamashi or Father's Soul, a baseball manga that lasted 3 years. When Chichi no Tamashi went on a hiatus a few issues into its serialization, a series that debuted as a fill-in spot for the baseball manga took the spotlight, titled Otoko no Ippiki Gaki Daisho. This fill-in manga launched with an epic opening that depicts a lot of themes that would eventually become the tropes we see today. It stars this delinquent gangster named Mankichi Togawa, who literally breaks the 4th wall and beats up the author on the very first page. He's strong, loyal, true to his words, and lives by a code. He rescues this damsel in distress from a bunch of hoodlums in the rain, while the other townspeople sit back and cower. This triumph gains him the respect of the small fishing village, and this all happens in the very first chapter. The series featured many other tropes like rivalries turned friendship, the late father figure with a mysterious death, all encompassed within this coming-of-age story. The series was popular among both male and female readers. In fact, many female fans of the series visited the author's studio just to watch him draw. This title, which debuted as just a fill-in for another series, became the pioneer in what would become the Jump formula. Otoko no Ippiki Gaki Daisho helped make a name for Shonen Jump, but it was still just a stepping stone to success. If Shonen Jump wanted to continue to have a name for itself, then they needed to find a hit with another series instead of having just a one-hit wonder. The next few years would become an experimental phase for Shonen Jump. The now sort of popular magazine wanted to reuse elements from Otoko no Ippiki Gaki Daisho, and did so with Astro Kyudan, or Team Astro, which debuted a few months before Otoko Ippiki ended. Astro Kyudan started off as a science fiction baseball story, but would eventually escalate into something bizarre and graphic, which I'll get into in just a minute. The story is about 9 baseball players with baseball-shaped birthmarks. Each player possesses unique abilities. They are the chosen ones who inherited the legacy of the legendary pitcher Eiji Sawamura. I'm here to tell you though, that this manga isn't actually a baseball manga. It's actually a battle manga, disguised as a baseball manga. The series is written by Shiro Tozaki and illustrated by Norihiro Nakajima, with a lot of absurd input by Shonen Jump editors. While Tozaki wanted to write a manga, Jump wanted to use his serialization as their lab rat to test input from reader survey, the small questionnaire that come with every magazine. These questionnaires usually ask the typical, what series was your favorite and why, but sometimes these surveys ask specific questions. Like this questionnaire from the early 70s that asked, which of these series would you like to see become an anime? Of course, since Otoko Ippiki Gaki Daisho was the most popular series at the time, it was chosen as the manga that would get an anime adaptation, and was the first Shonen Jump based anime series. And so, they decided to use questionnaires to ask what readers wanted to see in Astro Kyudan. It was the first time that an author and editor would create a manga utilizing the results from these reader surveys, a process that would change the magazine forever. So how did reader input affect Astro Kyudan? Well, things escalated to an 11. The manga started depicting graphic violence, like torture, crippled characters, and death. On this page, a character is committing ritual suicide during a baseball game. It also had over-the-top action scenes like a human Niagara Fall. It was a very intense manga that intrigued readers and had a 4-year serialization. And I'm sure Shonen Jump learned a lot, but supposedly at the author's expense. They say that the author, Tozaki, was so pissed he couldn't stand the many cooks in the kitchen and how he was told to escalate the violence in his work. He supposedly left during the middle of serialization, while he continued to be credited as the original author. According to Shigeo Nishimura, the third editor-in-chief of Weekly Shonen Jump, this was the starting point of Weekly Shonen Jump's manga creation, where editors and manga artists collaborated to create stories based on questionnaires, which helped usher in the era of battle manga that has since become popular in Jump magazine. The themes from Otoko Ippiki Gaki Daisho and the trial and error experiment that is Astro Kyudan led to the series that would perfect the Jump formula, Ring ni Kakero, or Bet It All in the Ring. The series is about Ryuji Takane, who aims to become a world champion in boxing, alongside his sister Kiku, who acts as his coach and strategist. The story initially depicted a grounded take on boxing, but changed course in the middle of the story to feature superhuman fights between boxers with techniques far removed from actual boxing. One feature that stood out the most in the series is the finishing blows. They were initially explained in principle, but as the series progressed, logical explanations were thrown out the door, and the author simply depicted characters shouting attacks, posed with their fist in the air, and their victims being launched into the air. This depiction of attacks was nicknamed Kurumada Tobi, or Kurumada launching, named after the author, and has become a mainstay trope in both manga and anime to this day. The series was a massive hit with the readers, and it became the first time in Shonen Jump history that a series got special treatment with its chapter beyond just making the cover. Ring ni Kakero didn't get a magazine cover, but it was the first series in Shonen Jump history to receive lead color for its final chapter. But that's not all. Up until that point, only a story's first few pages were in color, but this time, the entire chapter was in color. With the completion of the Jump formula, Ring ni Kakero's success paved the way for Shonen Jump's golden era. It's hard to pinpoint the exact year Jump hit its golden era, but I can say for sure it was around the early to mid 80s, when series such as Fist of the North Star, City Hunter, and Saint Seiya graced the pages of Shonen Jump. Out of all the manga series from the 80s though, there's only one story in that decade that sticks out above them all. The Jump formula has a pretty good success rate at making something popular. This was especially true when it was applied to a certain gag manga that turned itself into a battle manga that became not only successful in Japan, but also worldwide. You probably guessed it, Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball helped double the amount of readers Shonen Jump had, from about 3 million readers at the beginning of the 1980s to about 6.5 million in 1994. It was the series to compete with at the time. And when Dragon Ball's run ended in 1994, Shonen Jump lost about 500,000 readers, and when Slam Dunk ended the following year, Jump lost about 2 million readers. The golden age of Shonen Jump was over. Here's the thing about the Jump formula, however. It's always being updated to reflect what series is popular at the time based on questionnaires. About 5 years after Dragon Ball ended, Shonen Jump would find 3 titles that would surpass Dragon Ball, or at least compete with its popularity: Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach, also known as the Big Three. And since then, Shonen Jump has expanded globally, with apps available from multiple countries that allow you to read your favorite series anywhere you go. Anyway, so I wasn't sure how to end the video, but I guess now would be a good time to talk about my approach for this video. When I first started googling things, I had to find the closest equivalent to what Japan calls the Jump formula, and stumbled upon the word Odo pattern, which means the tried and true method. Anyway, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, see ya!